call to order the special commission meeting of the Stuart City Commission Zoning in Progress Workshop number 3. This meeting doesn't say here, but is advertised to go from 9 until 1 p.m. today. Roll call, please, Madam Clerk.
Mayor Rich.
Here.
Commissioner Clark.
Here.
Commissioner Collins. Here. Commissioner Giobbi.
Here.
Commissioner Reed.
Here. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Comments by city commissioners. Commissioner Reed, do you have a comment this morning?
I do. There was a couple things. I know a resident in East Stuart had been emailing me, trying to get a hold of me, and they have a property located on Central in East Stuart, and I guess they were advised that they couldn't develop their property because it was around 3,300 square foot for a lot size, but I was poking through the land development code, and it mentions, I think, 4,300 and so for a minimum lot size. But it was after the date the code was adopted, which the form-based code in East Stuart was adopted in 2023. So I thought there was no minimum lot size unless it was for newly plotted lots after that code was adopted, so.
It depends if it's commercial or residential.
So it's BMU.
I know, but what's the use?
I'd have to,
What's the person in East Stewart want to use? What do they want to build?
so that's what would determine their usage,
Right.
even though it,
A single-family home has no minimum lot size,
gotcha.
but other properties can have a minimum lot size or be required. I don't know, I honestly don't know who it is
So
or
when
what
they,
they're trying to
I
get.
see them in the audience, and then there was another one, I know at the last, workshop, someone had mentioned one of the contractors, I see him in the back, about not being able to do a boat ramp, how that would fall into the zoning in progress.
So it's not that he's not allowed to do the boat ramp. The boat ramp would require a minor site plan approval by the development director, and that is not a single-family home exception that you guys grant. We brought it up before, and the commission said no to the exception, so it simply has to wait for the project.
So if a motion was made then to allow a boat ramp for minor site amendment, it'd be okay, or
Sure, you guys can do whatever you want.
It was topic over there.
what was that, Jody?
Good morning, Jody Kugler for the record. So this property actually still has to go for a variance for the use. And also a major
But we
code.
can process it either way.
Yeah.
I mean, what's happened right now is
Yeah.
we can't do the application because of this ongoing progress.
Okay, so is there a way to word that motion then to where that applicant would be able to go through then if a motion was made, or does it?
So the problem with it is until we process the application, we don't know if it's gonna be impacted by the shade tree. We don't know if it's gonna be impacted by the pervious. We don't know if it's gonna be impacted by the parking. So when you guys said nothing can go forward if it has an impact of any of those things, we have to stop it until it's over.
Okay.
No, if we allowed it to go forward, they would be only required to meet whatever standards are currently in place. Now, the truth of it is, I don't think it's gonna require additional parking. I don't think there's gonna be any landscaping to do the boat ramp there. It almost looked like there used to be a boat ramp there years ago or something, because you could see like a different cement slab. But it's not the discretion of staff. The city commission had made the mandate that the only exception was single family. So I don't think it will trigger any of those uses, but if we accept the application and it does, then we're under the old use.
Gotcha. So we'll see how the other fellow board members feel about something like that, because something like that shouldn't be wrapped up into a zoning in progress. In my personal opinion, it's a boat ramp, but how the board feels is another story.
It's hard to say because
Well,
we don't know if there's any other scope. We know a boat ramp could
It's a
be part of
marina.
it. Right.
It's a marina, it's an operating marina that wants to add a boat ramp to be able to pull boats out to work on them, et cetera. instead of using the forklift thing to lift them out.
I have no problem with that.
Perfect. So is there a, do we have, I guess, from the board, I guess, it'd be a motion to allow something for the boat ramp?
Mr. Mayor?
Commissioner Clark?
So, Mr. Reed,
Yes.
Commissioner Reed, I'm glad you brought that up because I was gonna, bring up a motion to see if we can completely halt this zoning halt it, because of the economic climate, because people need to do certain things by the end of the year. And this is causing a lot of issues. And I know that you're doing one by one, and we've had it before when somebody has come in with something and it's like one by one by one. And I know that Commissioner Collins says, let's go through and get this done because maybe, it won't take that long. And maybe this part of it won't take that long, especially after today. But we have to have Jody to bring it all back and then do it again. And it's the economic timeline with the end of the year and people trying to figure out what they're gonna do with land that they purchase, which probably won't affect a lot of these things. We've talked about the parking. And I was just thinking that if we at least halt until January 15th and see if people can get some things that they need to get together. Anytime we approve this, it's gonna be, if you come in with a plan, and when you come in with a plan, it's going to have to meet the new guidelines, and they'll know that. But I think that we have an economic climate, and maybe when we get to the end of the meeting, we'll probably hear from the public. But I know you're bringing in one thing, but there are like several other people who have similar situations, who may want to build a single-family home, but they might have to replat the lot because it's whatever they bought with the lot, and all they want to do is just do a single-family home because it's considered development. Staff can't move ahead with it, and I'm sure that Jody could probably give us several examples of people who may have come in with something that won't be affected by. Possibly, I think that Commissioner Collins is interested in the parking guidelines and also in multifamily. But I just think that if we can give a clear halt so people can get their business together. We are in an economic climate where the opportunity might be gone for a lot of people come after, especially after January 20th. So I'm thinking that I just think that this is our community and we need to find a way to keep our community vibrant, and we need to be able to allow some things, especially this. Jody explained this to me with regard to, and I know that we're still in Commissioner's comments, and I'm just speaking to Mr. Reed's comment. Like a single family, somebody who may have bought those, I think we had mentioned those small lots like on East Ocean, like behind Flamingo, they're like small lots that have duplex on them. But either something like that has two small lots that may have to now be replatted with a one unity of title with a single family lot, and just put a single family home there, but it's considered development. And so we're having this issue where people, even though we say they can do single family, they may not be able to do the single family.
Good morning, Commissioner Clark. So if they came in and did a unity of title on combined two properties, that's not increasing the density. They're still only putting one
So they can
unit.
still
They
come
can
in.
do that. It's when they own a large piece of property and now they want to split it back
Into
up.
three.
That's where the density is increased, and that's where we had to halt per the zoning in progress.
And even if they want to break those three into making it three single family, so to speak, and
Is
not,
it-
yeah.
Is the marina a PUD or is it
Urban waterfront.
It's
it's
just
conditional
straight
use?
waterfront, yes.
Yeah, it has to
So-
go through conditional use, yeah.
So, at the last two workshops, we asked the staff to grant an exception to the zoning in progress for any conditional use or PUDs that did not have a residential component in it, and the commission voted no.
Yeah, we really need to, and I didn't, there's so many things that we could include in what you're asking, but like you said, Mr. Mortel, and I would agree with that if we can find the language to make those exceptions. Mr. Clark?
Yeah, I feel like we do this every single meeting. They
Yeah.
spend the first half an hour to 45 minutes trying
Yeah.
to get out of a zoning in progress. And we're so close. I mean, beyond chapter 3, we're buttoning this up. Staff, I'm sure, is not waiting for us to stop having meetings to start writing this up. I'm sure this is happening. In the meantime, they're taking all of these notes to have it ready to go. And the sooner we can get through this, the sooner we can open everything back up. So there are going, if we just halt the zoning in progress, while all of that language that we went into a zoning in progress to craft, the whole point of this, if we just stop the zip, you're gonna get a ton of potentially pent up, I think Mike had said there was like 15 different projects. It could not just be somebody with their single family home, it could be large scale projects, commercial, multifamily, things that will rush in and we'll be using the old rules. So I think we should just stay the course. We are almost done with this. They're gonna be working on the language in the background. I'm not opposed to making an exception for a boat ramp. I don't think that's anybody's intention, if you want to make a motion to do that, but
Well, it's more
Unless it's a
complicated
bigger
than that,
can of
because it's still a
worms.
condition use, and there's still, yeah, it's not
Okay.
just the boat ramp.
then I would say let's just stay the course, get through this, and get buttoned up.
Yeah.
Commissioner Reed, are
Yeah,
you,
it's done. Thank
Commissioner Joby, do you have any comment? Commissioner Clark?
Yes. With regard to this meeting going on till 1 o'clock, especially, I know that it's a discussion among us, but we've been allowing the public to have some discussion. But just so that people don't think that we are doing something that, we're stopping at a time when something exciting or important is happening. I'd like for us to set a particular break time so that people know when we're gonna break and we know when we're gonna break. And when we have discussion and arguments during that time, that we know that that's about the break time, so that
I was thinking
nobody
of-
feels like
yeah,
we're picking on them to
I was
to
thinking
stop.
11:15
11:15, okay,
for
thank,
15 minutes.
thank you, sir, okay. And then, the single family thing, he brought that up, plus with the marina. And then, of course, I have my issue here is like putting a pause due to the economic climate, and also to consider some exceptions, that even if we can come back in a few days or at the next commission meeting and say specifically, these are the kind of things that we can allow for exceptions until staff finish doing the paperwork, because I think that I don't know when we're gonna have our next meeting. This is our third one? Yeah, and we envision 3, Mr. Mortel?
So the intention, as I understood it at the last meeting, is that we would finish chapter 3 today, and that the city staff would bring on December 9th a resolution listing all of the potential changes, and get validation from the board as to what you want to do on those changes, and then go to the LPA and CRB boards and return to the commission probably the last meeting of January or first meeting of February, and then obviously the second meeting of February for the second reading, so that we make it before March 4th.
Are we gonna
Okay.
put in some time there for public meetings? Because,
It's up to you guys. And then.
No.
Definitely need public meetings.
And the other thing is,
We are right there.
We-
have to drag this out. It's like.
Well, I don't wanna be sued, Mr. Sorry.
We need to make it, fast, dragged out.
Mr.
continue,
Mortel, Mr.
Commissioner Clark.
Thank you. So I see, this is a teaching for, especially for people who've been on the commission, I'd say less than 5 years, or any time at all, coming on the commission. It's a good thing to do. Like I've said before, I've gone along with this, but I didn't think that we needed to have absolute pause in development until we had, this could have been worked as an introductory thing to make sure that everybody's on board, and also get the public involved. But we have a vision here for us, at least what I know, being on the member of a board of the city of Stuart, is that if we're deciding to change a vision or to move certain things, especially in the zoning, I absolutely don't see how, especially today, we're looking at neighborhoods, we're looking at streets, we're looking at areas where there's certain specific characteristics in those areas. And if we are going to be making changes the public absolutely needs to be involved. And if this was being used as a teaching thing, this is not a dictatorship where it's because we want it to be 5 feet or 10 feet, or we want something to go from 4 feet high to 6 feet high. People have their property, they have ownership, they want to see how this is going to affect the front of their property, the rear of their property, or what they can actually put on their property. I just think that during the LPA, it's going to be public. I agree with you, Mr. Collins, it's open to the public. The CRB is open to the public, but I still think that we need to have, at least, maybe when we have our city commission meeting, at least have 2, but it would be nice to have it before so that at the end, we're not making changes, we're getting the input from the ground up, from the public. And today, I think we're agreeing that we're gonna have public, although we're talking among ourselves. But I just think that we have a court reporter here. I see at least 2 prominent lawyers in the audience, and there probably are more. I think that we need to make sure that we follow our comprehensive plan guidelines. We follow our, just the ideal of having, zoning is important and making changes is important. And I think we need to set at least 1 public meeting, probably mid-January to the end of January.
Are you done with your comments?
Yes, I'm done
Thank
with
you.
my comments.
Commissioner
Okay,
Collins.
I would just say that I trust make sure that we're not doing anything that's going to infringe on anybody's property rights. I'll also say again, we do this every single one of these meetings for the first half hour and burn time. Having the same conversation before we get into this. And again, like I said before, I distinctly remember the doors that I knocked on when I was campaigning, and I'm sure that those 2 do as well. You have a mandate from the community here to protect the single-family home nature, the small-town nature of this place, and that's specifically what we've been going after with this zoning in progress. I am keenly aware of the comments that I had with people at their front doors, and inevitably when we have some of these workshops like today, it's going to be a lot of people who are just maybe it's their bottom line, or they have an interest financially, or whenever we have workshops, it tends to draw in a specific demographic of people. I know from the thousands of doors that I knocked on how the majority of people who live here and may not show up to a meeting feel. So, again, so that we don't burn time, I would like to just move into chapter 3 first.
Mayor,
Commissioner Giobi.
I have one brief, and Commissioner Clark, you initially were going to make a motion to stop ZIP, and now you're making a motion that would extend it, so I just don't understand. Thank you.
Just to pause it for a time period. I put it up, I think Mr. Commissioner Reed had brought it, and I explained to him that I wanted to make a motion to pause it for at least up until January, but we'll still have an opportunity.
And I agree with Commissioner Collins. We do this every meeting. We waste at least 25, 30 minutes. I think if we really want to get to the end of ZIP, have it resolved, we need to move forward every time we sit down. Thank you.
Well, okay. Thank you, Commissioner Giobi. I'm not sure it's considered wasting time listening to Commissioner Reed's concerns or Commissioner Clark's concerns or yours. This is one of the few opportunities the public has to hear from us and hear us colloquy regarding, there's no more important decisions we're going to be making going forward than the zoning, and potentially with the overlay zone in East Stuart rendering so many lots unbuildable. And I can't believe 2 meetings in a row I've heard the comment, we don't need to hear from the public. When the Bright Line issue was brought up, all we heard, an issue that we had spoken about for a year, that we had not listened to the public, not listened to the public, not listened to. And now it's stated overtly, no, we don't need it to go into East Stuart and talk to them about what dramatic changes. Will you allow me to finish my comments, Commissioner? Okay, so to not put in some time to go out into the community and talk to those people who could potentially be impacted, I think does not serve the public well. I have never heard people more angry than they are right now, ever. And I've been active in this community for over 40 years, involved in many causes. And this is because this is government at its worst. This is arbitrary, capricious, and inflicting real pain. These are real businesses. These are real jobs. These are real layoffs. These are real opportunities missed. This is real dollars not being earned. These are mortgage payments being missed. These are utility bills not being able to be paid. And I've never heard people more angry than they are now because so much is at stake. And I just hope we can find a way to resolve this. I would have supported a motion to pause this.
I just wanted to have discussion, sir.
We have got to figure this out. We have got to talk to the people impacted about it and get their feedback. I knocked on as many doors as you did, Commissioner Collins, and no one told me to act in this manner towards our community. So, do you have an additional comment, Commissioner Clark?
Are you going to pass the gavel and make a motion, or do you?
I was not going to make a motion, but if you,
I think Commissioner Collins said he had a comment.
Commissioner Collins?
I hate to fight too much with you first thing in the morning, but if you're frustrated with what's happening right now, the two of you were on the commission 2 years ago when we went into a zoning in progress and got 0 done. So with all due respect, we could have accomplished something in the last zoning in progress and not had everybody in this position where there's these issues that you're describing. I went up and did a presentation. We talked about the parking issues, the density issues, and when I sat down from that presentation, the two of you and the other two who were on the board at the time and went up for re-election and got smoked because of it, 0 got done. So we can virtue signal to who's in this room this morning, or we can get to work and get this done.
Thank you, Commissioner Collins. I hear you.
Just let me respond to that first.
Okay.
0 done. We've had 0 multifamily applications in those 2 years. 0. We've had 0 new development in multifamily. How is that nothing? 0 is as low as you can get. Central Parkway was already in the pipeline. Okay.
Okay, thanks. I've been
We've
here
had
the
no
whole-
new applications for multifamily since then.
I've been here the whole time, and I've been a part of those approvals. But when we did the ZIP, when you first came on, I think you also had the opportunity to make the comments that you're making now, because you asked for the ZIP. I'm an urban planner, and when we talk about a ZIP or moratorium, that is when you have a critical, dire need to make specific changes in the comprehensive plan. And at the time when we went through it in terms of parking and other things for the different areas, especially the new areas, urban waterfront and some other things that were, people were asking for some developments. We had development north of the bridge. I didn't see any, a major dire need at the time, and we all had the opportunity. We went through the same process. So saying that nothing was done, you asked for the process too. You had an opportunity to bring up the same things that you're bringing up now. And, so I'd like to make a motion that if we can halt this, this zoning in progress, as an administrative, action that affects development in our city, that if we can halt it until the end of January, and that's it. just to bring a halt to it at this time.
I'm passing the gavel to Commissioner Collins. I'll second that motion.
You have,
Normally, public comment is first.
Is there any public comment with regard to this motion? Do you have a green card, or
I
If you
have
can fill
green
it out
cards,
after.
but not for this motion.
Mayor, you can consider my green card for this motion. Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Nick Schroeth, and I live in the city, and my real estate and construction offices are located downtown. You had the opportunity to make right this wrong at the last ZIP workshop, but you whiffed. Commercial development that does not include residential units should not be included. That's the bottom line. Sean, you've spent 6 hours in my office discussing this matter, and you make a lot of sense in private. It's time you brought some of that sense to a public setting. The ZIP has effectively shut down the construction pipeline in the city of Stuart for 6 months. If construction in Stuart is a $200 million industry, the impact of the ZIP will be $100 million out of the local economy and will be felt by local trades and local contractors for years to come. Developers will just develop elsewhere. You're not impacting developers. You're not hurting developers here. This is before the lawsuits are even filed and before the unmeasurable of the intangible effect of this clown show. Jody, Lee, and Mike, this will be your legacy. Mike, you and Lee need to be advising your commission about the legal realities. The city of Stuart is still fighting an appeal against Reb Oil that I filed and won. Clean cut and clear as day. What's the reality of the legal outlook here? Jody, you're a planner. You hold certifications. Is the scope of this ZIP good planning? Is it feasible to expect you and your staff
Nick,
to
I would
undertake
appreciate if you don't call
this
anybody
scope
out by name, including staff.
of code rewrite? The city manager has been at the city how long? This is the legacy you're going to be left with for your time here? The economic fallout of a 6-month shutdown will be your legacy. City manager and city attorney, I'd like to see a realistic discussion on the legal realities, and city manager and planning director should be putting forth the reality of the economic impact of what this ZIP really is. If you say there is none, then well, the legacy you're left with will be the legacy you deserve. And Chris Collins, 12 to 15% of the voting registered voters is not a majority. Bottom line, all 3 of you got elected by 12 to 15% of the registered voters. And Facebook is fake news.
Thank you for allowing me to speak on this motion. My name is Deb Frazier. I am the executive officer of the Treasure Coast Builders Association, and I did file a green card, yes, when I came in this morning. Thank you for asking. So I want to speak in favor of this motion. I really appreciate the commissioners that are supporting this motion, because I think what we're forgetting, and Commissioner Clark, I appreciate your comments so much, because I think what we're forgetting is these people have faces. I think when you look at me, you think I'm a certain demographic, and I have a lot of small business people, a lot of small builders that work for me, and these people are really hurting. So we're forgetting about this young man, Kai, that came at the last meeting. What a great young man and entrepreneur. But you don't see the other faces of that are losing staff. They live local. They hire local. They come and eat local. I had a lovely breakfast at one of your cafes this morning. We are putting money into this city, and yet my people, my builders, my associates, my flooring people, my carpet people are continuing, and these are small businesses. I'm not here representing the track builders. I'm here representing the small guy that is being hurt by this. And the other question I guess I have that goes along with this is, how much revenue is the city losing? Has there been a study done before this ZIP happened to find out how much revenue are you losing to the city coffers by doing this? And so when this ZIP is over, what are you going to have to start cutting from your budget because you don't have the money to pay for it because you're losing all this revenue? So I just want to say that I really, really support this and really support the city of Stuart and want to make sure that this continues to be a good place to work and to eat and to thrive. But when you continue to shut down these small businesses, you're hurting faceless people. But these people have mortgages and rent and children to feed and children that go to school and children that they pay daycare for. So thank you for the motion. I appreciate it, and we are very much in support. Thank you.
Do you have another comment
I have other comments, but.
for
they're
this motion?
Public comment.
All right, seeing none, comments from commissioners? Commissioner Reed?
I'll address Nick's comments. So yes, I did sit with Nick for several hours, probably 2 or 3 times in his office. He mentioned his project, Avonlea, which I'm not sure if that's already in permitting or not. I believe it was. I could be wrong on that, but I believe that might have already been in permitting. He's already dealing with his own zoning in progress without being in a zoning in progress. And he only mentioned something about an awning that he lost as a contractor in downtown Stuart, which I believe that applicant was still going to use him, which an awning shouldn't have fallen into a zoning in progress. But I believe those were the 2 big things that Nick had mentioned when him and I spoke.
If the awning was going to be covering dining tables, it would be an expansion of an existing use and therefore would calculate parking as well as the floor area ratio and pervious.
So, any comments from the Commissioner Rich? Mayor Rich?
Mike, Mr. Mortel, if we onesies and twosies these exceptions, does that create, and perhaps Mr. Baggett, you can answer, greater potential legal peril because of the notion that it's unfair treatment then, unequal treatment?
Well, I think you need to be careful about inuring a benefit to one particular individual or entity is what you're looking at or what you're feeling. You know, the zoning in progress is temporary. And you know, it's not a permanent change. You've got permanent changes that you're going to be making here in the near future, and that would probably be something we need to look at more closely than this zoning in progress, which is temporary. We're still only within the first 90 days. So
that's the appeal to me of this halting as temporary abeyance of it, because at least it's equal treatment.
right, it's more
The
broad.
boat ramp, the pizza place, we could do this forever. And I just think get ourselves into more trouble. Okay, that's my only comment. Thank you.
Any other comments from Commissioner? Commissioner Giobbe?
If I remember correctly, you mentioned pizza, you did individuals, but basically you changed if there was no, I mean, what you changed was if there were no expansion to the footprint.
Right.
You weren't signaling out an individual patron. What you were saying was, if you fall within this guideline,
Right.
then you're not covered on, you're not stopped by zip. I mean, there's been a lot of talk around the table, a lot of talk from the public, and we appreciate that. We're not looking to hurt anyone. But the reality is, and the mayor brought it up, there have been no applications in the last 2 years. That's because we're so busy building all of the things, clearing land from the applications and the approvals from the previous years. And so this is why ZIP exists. It is why Sean and I probably were elected, is because people wanted a stop to it. There was a lot of deference made toward development and building and no deference to the people who lived here, and they were affected. They have property rights also. So when someone's building in your backyard and they're building a 4-story entity, while it is legal, it's overlooking you. You've lost some privacy to your property. And Commissioner Clark, to your reference, yes, these are the people in Stuart. And you're giving reference or preference to the people who are building for more people to come here. We're not looking at the people who already live here. And that is really who we are supposed to be protecting, because they have property rights also. Thank you.
Clark? Just one comment. Along the lines of the motion you've made. what would the implications be of halting the zip and not seeing this through? Is you, again, would have a rush of applications that all of the changes that we've worked and put everybody on pause for the last few months, everybody that we've, had wait to make those changes, that valuable time that we've been working to make those changes would not apply to all those applications. It defeats the entire purpose of doing it. So to just see it through and have those changes apply to the applications that will be submitted after is the whole point of the ZIP. So I think this motion defeats the entire point of why we're here, in my opinion.
Thank you.
All right.
And you make a good point. The ZIP will probably not apply to a lot of the things that are gonna be coming in because, it just won't. And that's why people are concerned now that they just wanna do whatever, the pizza place or something else, and they're not being able to do it because development has to tell them that, because, and we've said this before, if it's a conditional use or variance or something, they're gonna have to go through the process, and that's a part of the process, which is normal, and, they'll face the music then. But I still think that we need to, give people weren't given an opportunity that this was gonna happen when we first started this review process and the ZIP process. And not that if they were given specific notice that they would have all come in. It's been 2 years, and during that time, people had an opportunity, but they were waiting to make sure that we were literally done with what we need to do. And still people were shy of coming in with projects after we had the last ZIP. And here we are again. But like I said, I've made the motion, and I'd like to have some support from our commission as we go forward with the motion.
So Mary, just to clarify, if there's no other comments, the motion is to halt the ZIP, correct? Okay, just for clarity.
I have halt the zoning in progress as an administrative action that affects development in our city until the end of January.
Does that mean
At which
the
time the ZIP,
30-day clock run, Mr. Portillo?
Well, I didn't make the motion, but it would be whatever the intent
is
of
most
the
logical?
motion or,
Yep.
I mean, if you're asking for a lifting of the
For 90
zoning in
days?
progress, so that if you're saying we're not gonna have a zoning in progress until a specific date, so I don't know what the date is, but right now is November 19th. So if it's
So you want
30,
me to give you a
it would be
30-day or
December.
60-day?
So if it's 30 days, it's December 19th,
So then
or is it
it's-
January 1st?
It's more, I
Okay.
said January the 30th, the end
Okay,
of
so
January,
more closer to
31st.
60 days,
The end
and
of
then in
January.
60 days, it's the intention for us to turn the zoning in progress back on and return to the board.
Turn it back on. How many days are we?
this doesn't make sense.
So there's an agenda item on Monday night's meeting to extend it for another 90 days, because it would expire on December 4th if it's not extended.
So maybe we shouldn't extend it after December 4th.
That's where you would
And-
make your case for
and
that,
use
would
it,
be at
use
that
it as a,
So do you want to withdraw your motion, or do you want to go to a vote?
Eighteenth.
19th.
Ninth.
Number 9.
the 9th.
Are you guys ready to vote, or do you want to withdraw it? I know, we're just
Yeah.
40 minutes into
Merits
this
of a
again.
motion.
So the current, we started September 4th, right?
Yes.
September 4th. And that's 90 days is December the 4th. And if we don't extend it, so you are intending to take December 4th deadline to the December 9th meeting?
Yes, no, November 25th meeting.
Okay, okay, before December 4th. Okay.
On Monday, there'll be another motion, right?
But would still be
I'm going to use this opportunity today, and then again, I'll be coming back again, because I've been hearing from people, and I don't know what the result will be today. And I know that we can continue to review and do whatever we need to do. And I think that we need to go back and make time for the public to come in and talk to us. And I don't know what the rush is about, but I think that okay, so I'm gonna amend my motion. You're gonna bring in details for the November 25th meeting?
November 25th
reasons-
meeting,
or it's
the
just gonna
agenda
be a
is
straight-
already out.
Okay,
We've
so
already
just,
given the
I haven't
agenda.
looked at it.
The
What-
agenda just simply says that,
Do you want to?
right, to
Okay.
extend it because of what's currently pending.
Okay. All right. So it's two different things. To absolutely halt it on the 4th is one thing. To say that it may continue and then we're gonna resume it again is completely something different. And I know that Commissioner Collins wants to see something out of this, and we don't want to have to start off from the very beginning again when it comes to if this motion ever goes through. So I'm still deciding. Comment?
Commissioner Reed?
Yeah, I just wanted to state the big things that I've heard from talking with engineers, contractors, architects. We're basically in a zoning in progress to some degree without being in a zoning in progress. Some of their projects have taken 2-3 years. I don't know if there's any public comment in the crowd from contractors maybe or land planners, but I've been called where people have had projects that have
For
been
what
in,
it's worth, Avonlea was first approved in 1997.
I'm not talking about that one in
So
particular
it's
right now.
taken 21 years, but by its very nature and design, Mr. Waka that created it, created a single PUD that he intended to be a community that required amendments to every PUD along the way. And it had, I think, 13 different parcels or lots in it. So it was designed for each one to require an amendment to it. As far as anybody that's in a zoning in progress on their own, that's not the case.
Well, I spoke to someone
There's
this
people that
morning.
are saying that it's taking time to get through the process or to have a hearing, but we're actually able to review their plans. And we're able to give them comments, and if they don't meet the stormwater, we send them back and they have to make revisions, or if they don't meet the setbacks or they don't meet the code, there's a give and take. When the zoning in progress is over, assuming that somebody submits an application, whatever their application was will still have to be reviewed by staff. If it doesn't meet the Florida Building Code, or it doesn't meet the city code as it requires an issue here or there, we'll have to send it back. What happens is, when we get an application, our staff reviews it for minimum standard. Then we send it to an engineering company like CapTech or Kimley Horn, and they review it for technical. We also send it to our garbage, our sewer, our fire, and all those types of codes. And if the dumpsters are in the wrong place, we send it back with comments to them, and their architect or engineer has to redraw the plan and move the dumpster, or widen the sidewalks, or add parking spaces, or move shade trees, or watch out for an easement, or whatever it might be. And so those processes do take time, but there's a state statute that requires us to do it within a specific amount of time, and we're not violating the state statute. And we give our responses back to the applicant. The applicant then needs to get it to their architect or engineer and get the responses back to us. Very often, the contractors say, oh, the city's not issuing the permit yet, and then when we go look, you know, the contractor asked for it 2 days ago, not 2 weeks ago, and things like that. But there's no projects that I'm aware of that the city is causing any delay on right now.
Jody Kugler for the record. Yes, we are reviewing projects that came in right with the ZIP zoning in progress and moving forward with those. Right now, we have just a couple of projects in-house that are prior to the zoning in progress that we'll be bringing forward to the commission.
Thank you.
Just hang tight, and then we'll call for public comment in a minute.
You just did, I'm sorry, you just said, was there public comment?
No, we already did public comment for this motion, but we're gonna go to general public comment in a minute after this vote. So, any other comments from commissioners? Yes, sir.
Do you know?
So, Mr. Mortel, yeah, just let's keep in mind, you know, if we renew this, that you're talking about, and I would ask any business owners up here, imagine having to shut your business half. So say, couldn't the ZIP process get abused because you could,
Well,
so
you can,
go,
you
you
can't
renew it
extend
twice,
it.
and then you go
Right.
away for a week, and you come back, and then you turn the whole thing back on, or?
Right.
So if we go to, if we do not renew it at the November meeting, it expires in December 4th, whatever. But then can we put it back on, say, oh, we're gonna renew it the end of January, or is that abusing the
I mean,
process?
I imagine that there's probably a level that would become an abuse of the process.
Yeah.
There is no specific language in the code that says you can turn it back on or turn it off. The code says you can extend it one time. So you can adopt it and then extend it once by another 90 days, and that's considered temporary. I think that if you did the idea of where you turn it off and then turn it back on and turn it off, that you could potentially be treated as, like you said, abusing it and get a lawsuit seeking a declaratory action that you're causing, taking.
Mr.
Okay.
Mr. Baggett.
I was
So,
hoping to clarify.
Go on, continue, Mr.
I.
I don't know that.
I was just trying to see if it would be better to change my motion to just stop it after December the 4th, or wait until we come on the 25th and have that discussion, and that would require me to withdraw my motion, but I'm just listening to discussion from everybody. I was thinking that if we're continuing the process now and hoping to go on to the other 90 days, that we at least take a break on it, but if it's not, Mr. Baggett, do you have any opinion as to this? Because that would be in the middle of the second 90, well, potential. If we, that means we would have said that we're continuing into January.
I guess I'm not technically clear on your motion. Your motion was a motion to halt until the end of January. And then
Yes.
Mr. Martell used the term lift. Did you mean same synonymous as to lift the zoning in progress
Yeah,
until?
yeah.
And do you have an intent on continuing with workshops and continuing through making changes, or you don't want to do
I
that?
would have
just-
wanted that and to get the public involved. I think it would be to actually slow down the process a little bit, but within that second 90-day period, if we're gonna be in that 90-day period.
Well, you have a motion on the floor currently to lift or halt. Technically, that would be now.
From now until
But
January
we have
15th.
we have an agenda item next week
I hear you.
where we would not renew it after December 4th, or extend it. Under the code, we have, like Mr. Mortel says, you can do it for 3 months. We keep using 90 days. I thought it was as well, but when I looked at it, it says 3 months. And then you could extend it for another 3 months. So the whole reason to have it only 6 months is it's temporary. If you stop it at 6 months and then start it a week later, it's arguable from somebody that's no longer
Yeah.
temporary.
I hear you.
But you're kind of immune from any issues as long as it's temporary under the 6 months. And we have been working, this is our third workshop, so.
I just want to try to get this either over
I don't-
completely, or
And let's
if we're
do
gonna
it.
make changes,
Let's
we
do it.
make, we
Legally.
make it with the public involved.
Again, government at its worst was mentioned. We wasted an
Yeah,
hour,
I hear you, but I think it's
and
important.
we have this on our next agenda item. Like, Can we just get to work?
Legally, you can do it now, or you can do it at the next meeting. You're seeking two different reliefs. Next meeting, it just won't, the issue is whether you're not extended or it doesn't extend.
For the 90
Right.
days.
And then you're seeking two different relief, but, the issue is coming up at the next meeting. But you do have a motion on the floor that's been seconded, so we either have to vote on it or you have to withdraw the motion. So
This kind of energy is why it's 2 years.
Okay,
later,
let's vote on
and we're
it.
still doing. All right, Mary, would you
Whatever
call the
number.
roll?
Yes, Commissioner Reed?
No.
Commissioner Collins?
No.
Commissioner Clark?
Yes,
Commissioner Rich?
Yes.
Commissioner Giobi?
No.
thank you.
Motion failed.
Thank you, Commissioner Collins. So, can I get a motion for, comments by the city manager? Can I get a
Move
motion for the
approval of the
approval?
agenda as
We
published.
have a motion by Commissioner Clark and a second by Commissioner Collins. For the approval of the agenda, any comments by the public on this item? If not, do we? Okay.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Ronnie Kirchman, Kirchman Construction, 1241 Southeast Indian Street, Suite 108 in Stuart. I'm a general contractor. I was here last time. I spoke to you guys. Second generation company. I do employ Tanya, Courtney, Olivia, Rachel, James, Tanner, Josh, Brian, Randy. All live in Martin County. Some live in the city of Stuart. They work for me. My job is to go and feed them, so they can feed their families. This is greatly affecting my business as a local general contractor with a business located in the city of Stuart. I am not a resident of the city of Stuart. Have I lived in the city of Stuart? Yes, sir, I have. Yes, ma'am, I have. I grew up in Martin County. This is sad. It's not just me as a general contractor with my employees I just mentioned. It's also the plumbers, the electricians, the HVAC contractors, the flooring, the acoustical ceiling guy. I could go on with the gamut of list. I employ on one job, commercial job, over 20 to 25 different subcontractors, and they're all local. Martin County and City of Stuart subcontractors. I am not a developer. I don't come in here and say, I'm gonna develop this project, I'm gonna hire local. These big boys that come in here, they'll tell you that till they're blue in the face. Do they hire local? No. Do they consider Palm Beach County local? Absolutely. They consider St. Lucie County local? Absolutely. Martin County is local in my opinion. I ask you guys to strongly, at this meeting coming up, to pull this whole thing. Continue to have your meetings. I spoke to one of the commissioners in here this morning. We had a good conversation. I'm going to be calling each one of you this week and having a conversation with you, and I'll like to sit down with each one of you. My daughter also has a GC license. I'm hoping to retire in 5 years, which I kind of doubt, it'll probably be 10 years. I want her to take over the legacy that my dad started here in Martin County. Thank you.
I have Rod Peterson.
This is just on the approval of the agenda, so if they have
Oh.
comments,
No, I
why don't we take them let's just get the agenda approved, Madam Clerk,
This is
and
the
then
only time that's set for public
comments, well, the comments from the public,
I thought we did the approval.
no, we haven't voted on the
We did,
agenda.
okay.
No.
I thought we did.
So,
Okay.
all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Okay. Okay, now we'll have public comment. I just think we'll have all public comment, Madam Clerk, so if you could just call the individuals.
Rod Peterson?
Good morning, Board, Commissioners. I have a small issue. Where I can start from 803 Southeast Central Avenue. That spoke on about a vacant lot that been in my family older than me, over than 70 years. And I got all the necessary documents stating that the property can be built on in writing. Recent that I was told that I couldn't build on it, I couldn't do nothing with it, pretty much just stare at it, cut the grass and whatever. But newly platted vacant lots got to be up under 4,300 square feet. Mine is up under that, but that's from February 13th to 2023 when it was newly adopted. But my lot was already there. So I'm just trying to get a understanding why I cannot build on my property. And like I said, I got everything here. I did a lot of investigation. I did a lot of research from property appraisal, county, zoning, and records. And they come up with nothing, as in I am legal to build something on there. Stating here from CRA, this is the restrictions that I can. All this paperwork here. So from zoning telling me that I can't do nothing with my property. So that's what I stand from there. And if I can get something from writing from the commissioners stating that I can, I appreciate it.
Thank you, sir.
Craig Bissett.
How you doing? I purchased a property over.
Could you state your name and address, please, sir?
Craig Bissett, and the property is 516 Alamanda. I purchased the property under the intent of selling off a piece of it, subdividing, and building my own personal home. I used hard money to purchase the property. I also have renting a property because I sold my property. This is creating a very hardship for me. It's going to cost me over $100,000 in wasted money that I don't make a year. And I have 2 kids and a wife. And you guys are creating a hardship that is just, it's ridiculous. That's all.
Thank you, sir.
What was the property address? 516 Alamanda?
Ben Talbot. Talbert, I'm sorry.
have anything else to say.
Joe Caravano.
Good morning. I'm Joe Saravino, 5452 Southwest Landing Creek Drive, Palm City. I'm the current president of the Treasure Coast Builders Association. We represent 6,000 members, many of which are affected by the decisions you make here today. So I ask that you keep in mind the trickle-down effect and how it may affect the men and women who are trying to feed their families locally here. Thank you.
Rosie Shepherd.
Rosie Shepherd, 530 Southwest North Carolina Drive. Also, I own commercial property in Avonlea. I'm a realtor, a mom, and I own a construction company, Tough Roofscapes LLC. This really has caused a hardship on my business, with my real estate business, on my construction company, as well as I have a gentleman here that's going to speak on behalf of one of my customers that had built beyond substantial completion at 433 Lake, and they will not even reissue an expired permit so we can get a CO. The setbacks were right at 5 feet to the back at the time of the permit issuance, and we can, and they've charged him to get fire sprinklers issued, or fire sprinkler permit, utility permits, and it's causing a great hardship on Mr. Lewis Leonard, who is here. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Mark Reiner.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for your time. My name is Mark Reiner. I'm an attorney here locally. I'm based out of West Palm Beach, but I have a number of clients here in Stuart. I'm following up directly from Ms. Shepherd. One of my clients is the owner of the property at 433 Lake. I know there was some discussion that there are, regarding the ZIP, that there's not many projects that are being held up. Unfortunately, right now, we do have a vacant building where the building permits were approved. There was substantial completion. Essentially, what happened was a law regarding the distance between retaining walls and the structures changed after the building permit was issued. Right now, the owner is not able to get a certificate of occupancy. Clearly, there's a lot of financial damages occurring because everything was built according to the building department. It was approved. It was constructed in accordance with that approval, and now essentially the building's vacant and it's stuck where it is. So I think the lapse, the time, not looking at anything until the end of January will cause further undue hardships, and we would ask for essentially either the property be grandfathered in or to have some type of variances to the current zip where something was already completed, is occupied, and is vacant. And I thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Barbara Kibbe Wagner.
Good morning, everyone. Hi, I'm attorney Barbara Kibbe Wagner. I'm here with my husband, Jordan Wagner, and we own the Kibbe Wagner Law Firm at 73 Southwest Flagler Avenue in Stuart, Florida. And I'm just here this morning because I just wanted some clarification and possibly modification regarding parking in downtown Stuart. So we bought the office 3-4 years ago. It's the big white office on the corner. It's by Luna's. It says Kibbe Wagner. Unfortunately, we were very excited to buy this office. Unfortunately, since we bought it on a usually weekly basis, the Lyric Theater blocks off 7 to 12 parking spots, specifically just in front of our office and their business. This is obviously very harmful to not just our business, but all the other businesses in downtown Stuart. There's the Guggen Coffee Shop, there's Luna's Pizza, there is Spritz right there. This is right on the corner. I brought a picture. So those are the cones that the Lyric just puts up. They're not labeled. And then they have poles that are actually put in the streets. So they put those up yesterday at 7:30 a.m. and they have their poles saying Lyric Theater. Those are 12 spots in downtown that nobody can use. So at 7:30 a.m. they put those cones and spots up, and those were left up until after 5:30 when we left. So that's more than 12 hours. I spoke with the Lyric. We've spoken with them 3 times. We've said, hey, can we please go ahead and move these cones for our clients? We represent many accident clients, people who are in car accidents. They're on walkers, canes. They can't park all the way across the street. They refuse to do so. This is on a weekly basis. Their shows are at 7 o'clock at night usually. So there's no reason why during business hours, 12 spots should be taken. So I'm not trying to harm the Lyric. My daughter, she's 6, she dances there when there's Christmas shows. I grew up in this town, born and raised. I'm just looking for clarification. I don't think it's fair for any business downtown to just have 12 spots blocked. And I'm looking for what authority they have and if we can please change that. Have it narrowly tailored. If they need a couple spots for loading, unloading, fine. But it should be during or right before the times of their shows. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm sure we can ask the city manager to look into this. I can briefly tell you that many, many years ago, the Stuart Main Street and the Downtown Business Association came to the city with Lyric Theater and asked that the Lyric be allowed to mark those spaces off so that the talent, whoever's performing that night, could pull their buses in and reserve them in advance for when the bus gets there. Mrs. Kibbe emailed me yesterday, and I've responded to her. I've already sent a request to the clerk. I don't know if we did a formal resolution back when it happened. I know that it's informally been being done for at least a decade, or probably closer to 20 years. And to be honest with you, hearing the 12 spaces, it does seem a bit excessive. And also, I don't know the circumstances yesterday, but it could have been that the bus was supposed to come and doesn't come. Still, my recollection of it when it was at first adopted was that, when Willie Nelson shows up in the bus will be able to park in front of the Lyric. I think it's kind of expanded to be the bus and another bus and the whole block or whatever it might be. So we probably do need to address it and rein it in at minimum to define it and a certain number of hours before, rather than obviously losing it for the entire day and then not even have the bus show up. Correct number and time, Right. so. But we're looking through the archives to find when it actually happened and the meeting that it took place.
And you'll bring that back to us?
Yeah. Next,
Duet
Madam Clerk.
Price.
Oh, taking his shirt off.
I'm here today, DeWitt Price, City of Stuart. I'm here as a landowner, developer. I'm not the big bad developer that they talk about. I work everywhere, come into town. For the last 10, 15 years, invested over $500,000 to try to do something good for a community with a piece of property that was reverse spot zone, worked with the city and staff to do something more in line. Now, I'll tell you, 2 years ago, majority of the commission, it was said out loud, right? They said the quiet part out loud. They want to zip it, keep everybody quiet. You know, remember that? That was said 2 years ago. Right now, you're taking away all our property rights. We're stuck. We've invested lots of money. And what do I see? Not even paying attention to anybody speaking. They're reading comic books or whatever they're doing, not listening to folks coming up here telling you how hard it is that folks are losing their jobs. We have staff that can't work. But oh, you know what? I'm gonna try to figure out how I do stuff. I hear NIMBY about, oh, we're gonna lose our view corridor or privacy because someone's building a 4-story building. How is R2 single family and R3 single family fitting into that, right? Because you can go to 2 or up to 35 feet, but it's on the chopping block also, right? Because you have the gentleman here whose property fell underneath that 4,000 or 5,000 square feet. Now his property is gone. So he better figure out how to buy the property next door and vice versa and keep doing. So what you're gonna do, you're gonna gentrify everyone that's in there to try to put something in bigger that doesn't work in a community that's been long-standing and been there forever. The property I have, 1952, everything else built up around it. It was the first ones there. Everything else built up around it to be apartments. I come in and say, I'm gonna do 5 single-family homes. Well, guess what? Right now, that's on the chopping block because all of a sudden, R2 single-family, which I don't see too many people doing around here, or R3, is in jeopardy of losing their size, setback requirements, everything that I basically worked hard over the last 10, 15 years to try to do for a community is gone. And what do we hear here? We just voted no to even think about taking your time to have the public come out and speak. So what are you doing? Same thing you said 2 years ago. Zip. You're closing off the mouth of the people who look like me to basically be having an opportunity to speak out about what you're doing to their property rights. So if that's the way you guys want to keep it going, I'm gonna tell you what, I'm gonna make sure that it is known as to how this majority commission is running and how they really want to work. And I do have that path. Thank you.
Thank you.
Albert Brinkley.
I'd like to say good morning to you all. I'd like to say this here. It is time for you all as commissioners, when you come into this building, to have the right mindset to conduct yourself in a manner, because the public is seeing the way you all conduct yourself. God gave you all a responsibility to carry out the law of the land. You keep hearing me say this. I'm saying this because it just doesn't seem that you all are getting the picture. That's why I tell you to look at Romans chapter 13, verses 1 through 7. You have a responsibility to carry out the law of the land. We have a responsibility to obey the law. The way y'all conduct yourself, it's embarrassing to the city. Now, Mr. Campbell, I have to agree with you. You all need to take a step back here, because what you all are doing is affecting the East Stewart community, and you all is not looking at us of what you all is doing. Because what you all is doing is basically gentrification of the East Stewart community. You all need to take a step back. We are part of Stuart, but we are not being heard. We are being overlooked. So, Mr. Campbell, I have to agree with you. The community needs to be heard. Meetings like this here, the average person in that community is where? On their job. On their job. We need to be heard in that community and not overlooked. And for God knows how long we have been overlooked. You're all concerned more about downtown than the entire Stuart. It's more than downtown. You got whole Stuart. We're part of Stuart, but we're being overlooked, and we are tired of that. We need to be heard. Commissioners, we need to be heard. You all have a responsibility. There shouldn't be no dictatorship. This stuff is going on in Washington, finna go on in Washington. It's going on in Tallahassee. There shouldn't be no dictatorship, but it's working that way. We need to be heard in this community, not overlooked. And again, Mr. Campbell, you are right. This needs to be, community need to be heard concerning this here. This zoning that you all trying to do, it goes right back. When you look under gentrification, you'll see East Stuart. You all need to think about us in this community. Think about us.
Thank you, Mr. Brinkley.
Marcella Cambler.
Good morning, Mr. Mayor, commissioners, and staff. I wasn't going to come. I was working in my office, but it's very aggravating to hear this schedule, to hear this commission, some commissioners state that we don't want to bog the process down with public input, not that of the business owners, residents, or experts in the area. Let me remind you that the state statutes mandate that any changes to our comprehensive plan, which many of the things you're proposing will result in changes to the comprehensive plan, must be based upon relevant and appropriate data and analyses, must be include but not limited to surveys, studies, and the community's goal and vision. I wasn't going to come, but I keep hearing that this is based on a mandate, and please make this my public records request for the list of people in that mandate, because all of our names, again, are here. And as long as you all keep saying that this is being done based on a mandate, we have a right to know who is part of that mandate. You're the ones bringing it up. Secondly, I want to say this ZIP has frozen all of our work. Doesn't matter, I work in other communities. I did have a project for workforce housing in East Stuart, 27 townhomes. That's frozen. Don't even know if that's going to happen after you're done making the proposed changes you want to make to East Stuart. On the code, we just spent 2 years adopting, by the way. I have a personal project. My first house got approved very quickly. My second house has been in review since September 3rd. I don't know if it's because staff is very busy trying to make sure none of us can do anything. You know, same type of permit, lot next door. No comments, but my project for a single-family home is not moving forward. Maybe it is because now there's a proposal to make my homes non-conforming with your R3. I thought we were okay with single-family homes, especially with projects that adhere to doing single-family homes as opposed to their ability to do 30 units to the acre. Finally, I just, you know, I wish I had more time. I wish this were a true public input process. We're talking about, you know, playing bingo with densities instead of 30 and 20 and whatever. Let me remind you that those need to be based on seasonal population estimate, projections, Bieber, whatever it is you want to pick, not just opinion. And again, if it is the mandate, we need that list, please, because we're basing very important decisions in the city about that. I had one more thing, but maybe I will have to wait 2 weeks to say that.
Thank you.
Betty Brinkley.
Good morning. Betty Brinkley, 945 Southeast Nassau Avenue.
I thank God for Jesus, because he keeping us where we at now today. If it wasn't for God, we wouldn't be over in East Stewart. By the grace of God, I'm 75 years old, and 40 years I've been fighting, trying to keep East Stewart a residential neighborhood. Why? Because I'm a Crow or whatever you consider me. If I got to fight to keep my home, why am I fighting all this long time trying to keep the home that I worked for, paid for, to get, and then it's in jeopardy because you want the area for business. Nothing against the business people, but you want it to expand. That's how I feel about it. Because I'm a different color. Why are we going through this here in 2024? We shouldn't be have to fight for our home or stuff like that. And then you come over there and you do anything over in East Stewart, all time of morning, 5 o'clock, you over there doing trash. 9 o'clock at night, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, you over there sweeping the street, waking people up out their sleep. We get disrespected over there simply because we not your color, money, and stuff. That's how I see it. We consider nobody. All this other stuff you doing to us. Because, please tell me. And then we get this advisory board about the park. You totally, this group right here, you the new, disrespect us, disregard us as being somebody. You go in and we tell you what we don't want, but you go and put what you want there anyway, what you want. It's not for us, African Americans. You want this park for nothing but against you, good white people, nothing against, I'm serious. You want it to be for somebody other than the black. It's in the African American community, but you fixing it up for somebody else. Not for us, what we want. You totally disrespect the advisory board, what we were trying to do, but you got there, the other people that left maybe have a different perspective of going along with us, but you disregard us as being human, disrespect. Use us, that's all you did, use us.
Thank you. Ms. Brinke?
I have no more public comment.
No other comments, okay. So, discussion and deliberation by the commission. I would just like to remind the commission before we begin this that someone who was very closely involved in creating East Stewart and Creek District code, and I was at many, many workshops that she was with, and she's here from the Treasure Coast Regional Planning Commission, and that's Ms. Jessie Seymour. So I would just, if you have questions of her regarding the code, or maybe the thought, without objection, I think we could refer to her, Mr. Mortel, and ask her questions.
You guys free
Yeah.
to do whatever you want.
So,
It's workshop,
if you don't
so
mind,
guys
Ms.
can-
Seymour.
You're gonna let Jody do that first, or you're just gonna go through chapter 3?
No, Jody, do you have a presentation?
No, sir, I do not have a presentation. We were just going to start with chapter 3.
Okay, Commissioner Collins.
Unless there was a lot of desire to go through urban and Creek District, I don't really feel like those changes were the major concern that I had. I feel like the parking changes that we've made and the density changes, that would make its way through, Mike, the urban and Creek District from a commercial standpoint, right?
Yeah, we can, when we bring it forward with the resolution, the board has the authority to make that citywide.
Right. So I don't know that we need to go into urban or Creek, but my major concerns were with the East Stewart form-based code. So I was going to ask if we could go specifically to that section versus spending too much time in urban or Creek.
I understand. Thank you. May I say
Yes.
something, Mr. Mayor? With regard to the Creek District, I know that there's a great deal of multi-family units in the Creek District. And so I don't know if you want to talk about any parking changes with multi-family. Those are already existing, but
Well, the board has already discussed parking changes related to multifamily. When we bring that back, if the board tells us it's all multifamily, then it's all multifamily.
Right.
You make different areas exempt, be exempt. Like, for example, where we're sitting right now is exempt from parking place because there's no parking. But if you adopt the 2.5 spaces per 2 units citywide, then it'll apply.
Minus what's already parking exempt.
Right.
That would
And
be my,
it's also, there's gonna be a debate, one of the issues we're gonna address with the board is grandfather. Obviously,
Right.
if you have a building that's already built,
Right.
you're not gonna be required to go out and add the parking.
correct.
Yeah, okay.
What if you sell that? Well, I mean, again, you guys haven't adopted anything yet, so I'm answering hypothetical. Historically, it would be a non-conforming use that's grandfathered as a legal transferable use. However, if you expand the use, you then need to come in compliant. So if you had a 2-story building that had its parking lot or whatever, and then you decided to add a 3rd floor, you would then be required to add whatever parking was necessary on the first 2 floors, as well as the 3rd floor, in order to add the 3rd floor. I mean,
Could
that's
that-
assuming that's what you guys adopt.
Could that
when
be
you do it.
viewed as a taking?
Again, it depends on what you say or do. It hasn't been in the past. These are all hypotheticals right now, because I don't know what language is being adopted or not adopted. If you went out right now and said, anybody that has any type of residential unit and you have to build twice as much parking or 25% more parking, you have to do it right now, or you don't have clear title, then you would probably have a Burt Harris claim that is diminished value of those properties. If you did it to only expanded uses, as long as it didn't take a vested, it didn't remove a vested property right, and reduce the substantial use of the property, it might not meet the Burt Harris standard. So it all depends on what exactly you did. For example, it's not, our code or zoning isn't prohibited by law. You can do zoning. We've always addressed parking and density and height and setback. So just adding a setback or taking away a setback hasn't been determined to be a Burt Harris claim. It's the extent to which it reduces the value or use of the land, and it's a subjective or case by case. After the last workshop, I sent everybody a summary of the Burt Harris that had like a bullet point of the different criteria that need to be used to evaluate each case basis.
But if I had a 2-story building, say I had 6 units, 2 stories, and I could, and I've owned it for a few years, and right now I could go to 4, and then we change the parking reg, aren't you denying me?
If you can still go to 4, I'm not denying you anything.
But if with the new parking restrictions, I can't.
Well, if you can't, then yes, you'd be being denied, but why can't you? I mean, it's a case by case that you'd have to address. For example, one of the public speakers earlier today was talking about a parcel in East Stuart. So I quickly looked up the East Stuart code, which we're getting ready to talk about. If you look at table, I think it's further down, but it talks about the minimum lot sizes, and it says that it's ESN 09. It says there's no minimum lot area and no minimum lot width, and it has a footnote number 1 next to both of those.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you scroll down to the footnote number 1,
Right.
it says 4,365 square feet are necessary. The parcel on Central is 3,005 feet. So the question is, from staff's perspective, I'm sure that someone in reviewing that with the gentleman probably said, this parcel doesn't meet the 4,365 square feet mentioned
Minimum.
in the footnote, which doesn't mean that it's prohibited. It means that in order to have it be a parcel, they would have to come before the board as a conditional use. The city commission could then grant the ability to build whatever it is that he was pursuing to build, but the process would be conditional use.
Okay, before we get too in the weeds, which is easy to do here, for those commissioners who are looking to make changes here, could I just ask you, what is your vision for what you want to accomplish here? What do you want this area to look like, or what do you not want to see happen? This is normally how the commission would work. We'd say, here's the look or feel, or here's the overall idea of what we want to do. Can we get some regulation to accomplish that? So if I could just ask us to step back so I can get an idea of where we're headed.
I just wanted to go over the footnotes. It mentions the minimum lot size though, Mike, but it says for newly platted lots.
So-
This lot isn't really newly platted though, because it did have a single-family residence.
So it says for existing parcels with assigned parcel ID numbers at the effective date of this code.
And what would be the effective
It
date?
seems to me that those parcels would have no minimum lot size. And then it says the newly platted lots have a minimum lot size of 4,365. I'm assuming that this, and then it says the newly platted lots at the effective date of this code would have been 2023.
That's how I interpreted it.
And again, I don't know that he's submitted a permit. I don't know that he's submitted anything to be built. It also has setbacks, and if he submitted a house that only had a foot setback and it got rejected. So I have no idea what was submitted, or if anything at all.
Ms. Seymour, do you have a comment on this?
Yeah, I just wanted to add to, Jessica Seymour from Treasure Coast Regional Planning Council, just wanted to add to Ortel's comments, city manager's comments, that he's correct with the newly platted lots. We would, of course, have to know the full scope of what was submitted to see what would be maybe one of the issues that came up. But the intent behind this was, of course, to recognize that the platted lots in East Stewart, many of which are unusual sizes and scales, that they should still be buildable lots, but that then in the future that people wouldn't abuse that system by subdividing them even further into very, very small lots. So that was the intention all along. So just for context on when we were working on that code, that was the intended language. It was the intent behind the language.
And that's how I interpreted it as well when I looked over for Rod, when he had called me and reached out through email. Existing parcel IDs have no minimum or maximum lot size. Newly platted lots after this code was developed
But
would
you
have
guys,
to meet the
At
minimum.
the last meeting, the board voted to tell us to make minimum, at the first workshop, my notes are gonna be that you guys said to bring minimum lot size of, you said 6,500.
Right.
And Commissioner Collins said 6,000.
Correct,
So our
but-
notes are 6,000.
Yes, but in the East Stewart neighborhood code, it was
Right, but that,
correct.
but those minimum lot sizes was citywide at the first workshop. If you guys want us to
We
not
did
do
not
that, we need
differentiate.
direction to that effect, because right now,
Because of the
it was
17,
to everywhere.
because of the 17 per acre, you're gonna be looking at a smaller minimum lot size here. That number would reflect East Stewart more specifically.
So
Because of 17 units per acre versus 15. Correct? That's
it
how you go
really-
from
no,
5,000 to.
10 units per acre is 4,365.
Then what was the rationale for 4356?
For what?
Because it was 1 acre divided by 10, it came to 10 single family, correct.
4,650 divided by 10. That's actually B2 zoning.
And then, as you said, though, the effects of looking at minimum lot size across the board and the parking standards which are different in the East Stewart neighborhood, if those effects could be something that even is affecting potentially, I think Jody may be able to answer this better, but the single-family zoning in those districts.
And I believe in East Stewart, when I've looked, East Stewart neighborhood code might have had the only one in the city where it was no minimum lot size. No, there's
The CRA north of the bridge. has-
CRA north of the bridge. Because I know in the Fraser Creek neighborhood, there's a non-conforming structure with a lot size of 20-some hundred square foot where it was platted out, but that was non-conforming. And I believe when I read it, unless there was a hurricane or natural act of God, then they could replace what they had, I believe.
Commissioner Clark, do you have a comment?
Yes, I want to be sure that the smaller lot sizes that are buildable lot sizes in East Stewart stay the same, and that the the citywide proposal, that doesn't affect the current language that's in the East Stewart.
And that is exactly why we're gonna be bringing back the resolution on December 9th, so that we get the clarification from the board, so that we know specifically on those issues whether or not you want them to be, for example, the parking issue that last meeting we talked about, adding 2.5 units for a 2-bedroom multifamily to calculate parking. Does that apply to the Creek District, the CRA, the urban center, the urban waterfront, the urban downtown, and East Stewart, and the city as a whole, or does it just apply to outside the CRA? And those issues will be very quick to go through on December 9th, and we'll just go right through them. And if the commission says as a whole, then it's as a whole. If it's as limited, then it's limited. Right now, my notes for the minimum lot size was that we actually addressed that there was no minimum lot size in East Stewart and north of the bridge, and that the board wanted there to be a minimum lot size for those areas. But you guys are free to change that.
Yeah, I did.
Ms. Seymour, before you wrote the form-based code for East Stewart, did you do an inventory of all the properties?
Yeah, we did as mentioned before, it was a 2-year effort. We did an extensive amount of GIS work with the city staff to review the sizes of parcels, the ownership patterns, the development patterns, demographic information, and that all was used as part of the effort to make recommendations. So this minimum lot size before the form-based code, and again, for some frame of reference, East Stewart has always, since 2004, has had its own unique code. It was not a new thing in 2023 for them to have, that neighborhood to have a different code similar to the urban district. That it was a little bit different because it recognized the scale of the lots, the historic fabric. And at that time, there was also an acknowledgement of the smaller lot size as well. So we carried that forward.
Thank you. It was somewhat of a rhetorical question, and just to reveal why we're in somewhat of a muddle here is because we're passing regulations, and I've asked this before, do we have, I've asked, do you have an inventory of how many properties are affected by this change? And we don't have that. We haven't done that prior to suggesting these changes, and one of the reasons the process is going to be so lengthy is when we finally get back from Mr. Baggett and Ms. Kugler and Mr. Mortel, suggested changes, then we have to go out into the community and talk to these businesses and meet the people in East Stewart and say, hey, here's what we're suggested. What do you think? And that's going to take a while, I'll tell you that, because some of these changes are pretty sweeping.
Just with regard to minimum lot size, I do think it makes sense to have a minimum lot size, but it should be based on what's over there. So maybe it's leveraging that work that you did in the past, where you looked into that. But with regard to residential north of the bridge as well, we should have some kind of, not to make everything non-conforming, obviously, we should have some standard over there for minimum lot size, would be my ask when you come back.
Commissioner Collins, we can actually do that. When the form-based code was being processed and all the analysis, I wasn't here during that time, so I rely a lot on Jessie during that process. But I can work with her and we can bring back the inventory and update it if that's the wish of the board.
I would like that. To Mayor Rich's question initially, like what do we want to see over here? Yes, sir. Yeah, we found our way back. The reason I wanted to start with East Stewart form-based code is because this is on the short list of decisions that I regret in terms of voting to approve. At the time, this was, we had just gotten thrust into this. If you weren't on the LPA, you weren't as familiar with it. I was not. And I'll tell you why I regret voting for this is the East Stewart form-based code, as far as I can tell, dramatically transforms the nature and use of a single-family home neighborhood to a mixed-use, more developable district, sort of a creek district with some residential in there. And the more that I've unpacked the changes that we've made here, I regret it deeply, because if this was done in my neighborhood, I would be furious. Okay, so here's what I wanted to ask, if you'll let me have the mic for a minute. Chris, would you pull up the Martin County Property Appraisers website, that map? Because I have a couple points I want to make here before we get too deep into this. And I don't want to make huge sweeping or tiny little change. I think this could be dialed in relatively easily. As far as I can tell, mixed use or, you know, commercial should and could happen on MLK to some extent. But
If
we
you
have,
also, if I can interrupt for a second, you
Yeah.
also pull up in the code ESN 06.
yes,
That's
exactly.
the map.
That's our new back.
There it is.
Color map.
Yeah, if you give me that as well. So,
Sideways.
yeah, can you spin that around?
Rotate it.
Maybe file save and rotate it.
If you save it as a snipping tool and turn it.
Chris, can you file save that?
There you
Just,
go.
there you go.
I have another document I'm pulling up.
Okay. And I'm going to tell you what my issue. Oh, that's perfect. Where we can go back and forth.
It's gonna load it'll load
The
the
previous
colors
as
follow
well?
Each plan, so it
Mhm.
shows both.
So as I would characterize this, and this is my opinion, previously, the way that we had this configured was as a primarily residential neighborhood, single-family home neighborhood. The changes that we made here allow business and commercial to be intermixed within this, and density in the form of duplexes where there are existing single-family homes. Hang tight.
Okay.
So the types of zoning that we have in here that we'll get into are business mixed use, which we're going to see in purple, general residential office, which is going to be in green, and single family duplex, which is in yellow. Within those three available zonings are, yeah, GRO, BMU, and SFD, are any of those single-family home exclusive?
So if you include duplex, the yellow is. Now, I want to make a point of clarification.
But to answer my question,
Correct.
are any of those three zonings exclusively single-family
detached
home?
Single-family home, no.
Exactly, okay. So even within single-family, that could be a duplex, correct?
If the density of the lot size permitted it.
But it can be a duplex, potentially by right if it's allowed.
If the lot size allows for that, yes.
Okay. GRO, besides single-family home, what could GRO be?
Offices and some of the low-impact commercial. We can look through the
So it
permitted
could be commercial,
uses.
correct?
Yes, a handful
Right.
of
Mixed
commercial
use,
uses.
commercial type thing?
Mhm.
And then